Hi Pre-Calc, this will be video number 5, or part 5, whichever way we want to think about it, for 4.4. So this is going to be the last video, this is the last lecture part, this is the last part of the lecture. So congratulations, we're just going to wrap this up. You've made it through, you're almost to the end of today's lecture. All right, so I just want to cover a few little concepts. So I taught the majority of the lecture. I just want to, there might be a couple things in here you get stuck on, so I just want to help you. So for when you do the homework, you're going to end up having, I'll post the homework, but you're going to end up doing 37 to 45 odd. And those questions look a lot like what I have posted here. And basically that part of the homework is just asking you to evaluate what we would call a quadrantal angle. So a quadrantal angle is an angle that falls on the axes, meaning it's 0 degrees, 90 degrees, 180 degrees, 270, 360, and on wrapping around the circle in a counterclockwise or a clockwise direction. But anytime you fall on any part of this axis, we call that a quadrantal angle. So this is the unit circle. The unit circle basically gives you out values for the sine and the cosine. The cosine is the first. So this is an angle of 0 degrees. Most of these questions are in radians, or actually let me stay in radians. So this is cosine of 0 radians equals to 1. Sine of 0 radians equals to 0. And on around the circle. The first value is the output of the cosine. So this is now at an angle of pi over 2 when you're up here, or 90 degrees. And the second value is always the sine. And on all the way around the circle. That's the output of the cos, the output of the sine at pi. The output of the cos, the output of the sine at 3 pi over 2, and on. So when I start to answer these questions, one of the problems you're going to run into is that the question is not in terms of sine and cosine, which is what the unit circle is in terms of. So you have to convert it into something that you can use the circle for. So I'm going to convert this. Cosecant is the same thing as saying 1 over the sine of 3 pi over 2. And now that it's in terms of sine, I can use the unit circle. So 3 pi over 2 falls right here. The sine at 3 pi over 2 is the second value, right? The first value is the cosine. The second value is the sine. So that means that it's going to be 1 over -1, which will simplify to be -1. All right, let's try the next one, secant. I'm running into the same problem because the unit circle is made up of sines and cosines. So I have to convert this using a trig identity into something that is a sine, a cosine, or both. So the secant, using the reciprocal identity, which this was also the reciprocal identity. Using the reciprocal identity, this is the same thing as saying 1 over the cos of pi. So the cos of pi, I have to go to here to where pi is. The cosine of pi, again, that is the first value. So the cosine of pi equals to -1. The sine of pi equals to 0. So the first value is always the cosine. So that means that the cosine at this angle is equal to -1. So it's the same thing. I have 1 over -1, which is -1. Okay, now the cotangent. Again, the cotangent, I have to convert it to sines and cosines, so I can use this. So this time I'm going to use the quotient identity. The quotient identity. The quotient identity is the cosine of the angle over the sine of the angle. So I'm going to do cosine of 0, which is 1, over the sine of 0, which is 0, and that means that this is going to be undefined because you're dividing by 0. So there's no answer for that one. If you're interested, graphically what's happening is that you're at a vertical asymptote. So this is actually a domain restriction. There's a vertical asymptote at 0 for the cotangent function. Okay, last one, tangent of negative pi over 2. So if there's a negative in front of the angle, that means that you're rotating in standard position clockwise. You're coming this way. So if you're coming to negative pi over 2, you're coming here to this spot. Okay, so that means that I'm sitting here on the unit circle, but I need to convert this into something that the unit circle can handle. So I'm going to use, again, an identity. So the identity I'm going to use for this one is the quotient identity. So the quotient identity for tangent is sine of the angle over cosine of the angle. Okay, so sine of negative pi over 2 is right here. It's -1. Cosine of negative pi over 2 is the first value. It's 0. So I'm getting the same scenario where I'm dividing by 0, so therefore this is undefined. Graphically, the same thing is happening. If you look, and we will get into the graphs, but if you look at the tangent at an angle of negative pi over 2, you will notice that there's a vertical asymptote there. So this angle is actually a domain restriction. Okay, gang, that's this part using the unit circle, and that should help you with this part of the homework. The last little thing I want to do is just do a little bit more calculator with you. So you'll notice in like problems, again, I will post the homework, but like through 75 through 89, odd when you do those problems, it's back to using your calculator. So just a reminder, you can only use these 3 keys for when you input angles, the sine, the cosine, and the tangent. Watch what mode you're in. So let me turn on my calculator. I'm in degrees right now. So this is in degrees, so I'm A-okay. I'm good. So I can go ahead and do the tangent of 304 degrees, right? I'm in degrees, so I'm good to roll. I'm going to hit equal. I'm going to do, how many decimals does your homework want? 4 decimals. Okay. So this is approximately equal to -1.4826. I just rounded up on this guy because that's a 6. All right, now the next one you've noticed that I gave you is in radians. So I have to now change the mode. So in my calculator, I hit this button. And I have to go to radians, so I hit this button. And then I have to hit enter because it has to confirm that I've changed the mode. So now on my calculator, this changes to radians. All right, so I'm good to go. So now I'm going to do cosine. Oh, let me clear this. I'm going to do cosine of 2 times pi divided by 7, close brackets. And I'm going to round this to 4 decimals. Okay, this one rounds up also. 0.6235. Okay, so I had to round up on this guy also. Try to remember that when you do these homework problems, that if you get anything that is not on your calculator, like the cosecant button isn't, so you have to do 1 over the sine, right? So for like, I won't work that whole thing out, but like the cosecant of 405 degrees, your calculator doesn't have that button. So you're going to have to do this as 1 over the sine of 405 degrees and then put it in your calculator like that. So don't forget, for some of these you have to use an identity, right? Like, right, you do an identity for that. That you're going to have to use a quotient identity. You're going to have to do sine over cos. Oh, no, I'm sorry. You have a tangent button. You're good on that guy. This guy you have to do 1 over cosine. That guy that one you have to do 1 over sine. And again, watch your mode. All right, so I'm going to wrap this up. Just some minor now wrap-up notes, a little housekeeping here. First of all, some of you don't have the book. So I am going to post the textbook right under the lecture notes. So if you do not have the book, you will have access to the homework questions and the answers. All right, so please don't worry about that. I know we're in sort of uncharted territory. I will try to make this as easy for you as I can. I'm trying to do what I can on my end. And so I will post the book. I will post the answers to the book. Second thing, please submit your homework by the deadline. I am sort of in uncharted waters trying to use this software package. It will lock you out if you don't submit the homework on time, okay? So I will give you always a couple days to submit your homework. It's going to be 15% of your grade. I talked about that earlier. And it doesn't need to be perfect. If you get the wrong answer, you can still get 100%. If you skip a couple problems because you have no clue how it's done, you can still get 100%. What I want from you is you to try your best, okay? I just want you to try your best. Please open the book, try the examples. I know we're having a hard time focusing. I know it's not as easy because you just can't ask me a question in class. But I will try to post some videos to the questions you give me. And again, go online to the tutoring. We have online tutoring now. Please use that, okay? What I want when you submit the homework is just to see that you gave it a good old try. That's what I want to see, okay? So with that note, I hope you enjoyed your first lecture after test 2, and I look forward to working with you guys virtually, I guess. Okay, catch you next week. I will. That's it for this week. I'm gonna give you this, post the homework, and that's it. I'll see you again Tuesday next week. Bye-bye.